Hey, fellow Ristopians, welcome to Ristopia. So, I had a delivery, ding dong, delivery of two Helm Khuraburis recently. And so let's look at the piece in a little bit more detail. Thanks for your comments, those of you guys that have commented. I'll give you some dimensions now. I'm a quick pits manoeuvre wearing my other Helm Khuraburi, the titanium version, white dial duck egg blue loom. Try and slow that down, probably going a bit quick there. It's not very pitsy, is it? Speeding up, calm down, Ristopia. As you can see, nicely scratched up titanium clasp because I do wear this quite a bit. I took this to Hawaii with me, which was my favourite watch in Hawaii, Kauai mainly, but did go to the capital as well, Alamona Mall. What was it called? Not Ben Time. Oh, I can't think what it was called. But yeah, I had a little view of a couple of watch shops in the Alamona Mall, Hawaii. Yeah, loved the pieces. Now, so let's get those. As you might have seen in my previous video, I've got this one, which is, let's get it a bit close, but we don't want any glare, which is the blue dial with orange accents. I've also got the blue dial with the white accents. It still has an orange tip to the second hand, but I think everything else on it, I haven't got it here with me. Everything else with me is blue or white. This is the one I wanted. Waited 14 months for this. Probably the watch I've waited the most for ever. I can't remember how long I waited for the Vanuatu's, which are over there, which I'll mention in a moment. But I think, yeah, this is the watch I've waited the longest for, being that I asked for it and I waited for it without anything in between, if that makes sense. Really pleased that it arrived. I've now popped it on the SS2 bracelet, which I love. Last time you saw it was on a blue NATO, an orange NATO actually, and it was just giving me a headache and I had a bit of a hangover. So, but now it's as it should be, on its steel SS2 bracelet, which comes as standard on this. I'm not sure if you could put an SS1 on this, because they do, whether you can get an end link. I'm guessing you might be able to get an end link and put the SS1 on, which is, I haven't got one here, which is the 5-link Jubilee style. Anyway, let's do those dimensions for my my viewer. Let's see. Who asked for the dimensions? I'm about to find it now. Lead phalanx. Did I pronounce that properly? Lead phalanx. It is a very good looking watch, and here is the video with some dimensions. I know what they are, but let's get the calipers out. Let's get the old verniers out. I hope that's not reflecting light. So it's 43 mil, roughly 40. You stated 43 mil diameter. The crown is approximately nearly 8 mil. 22 mil lug width. It's difficult to measure those, because if you do it there, it's already started to taper, so it's going down a bit. 22 mil lug width, which tapers to, which tapers to 23 mil at the clasp, and then 24.5 roughly on the safety section of the clasp. Lug to lug, I forgot what this one is. Lug to lug is 48.5 mil. I think it's about 17 from memory. Let's have another look. No, not that much. 15.5 roughly. You can see the actual figures on there. I think that's all the dimensions, isn't it? So that's the dimensions. How does it wear? I've got a 7.5, somewhere between a 7.5 and a 7. Somewhere between a 7.25 and a 7.5 inch wrist. And wears pretty well. It's quite a deep watch. I call it, I was thinking of doing a short, I call it, it looks like a bit like a cauldron, the design. Anyway, I come back to that because that's one of my dislikes. But it's not, there aren't many. I think this is a stunning watch for the money. What was that money? So I ordered two. So delivered to my door. The end delivery agent was Royal Mail, and delivered to my door. That was £287 nearly. That was for two. So 572, I think, divided by two. So that gives you the unit price of one. Now they are delivered. I haven't checked this actually, but they are delivered individually. If you buy two, they are delivered individually. They're not put into one package. So I've never really thought of this, but I'm assuming, because I've purchased two Helms at the same time before, I'm assuming that you get charged for two deliveries, but I'm not quite sure. But still sort of, you know, it's sort of under, even if well, no, it'd be even cheaper then, wouldn't it? So well under £300 for one of these. So this has an NH38 in, so the no date version of the Seiko movement. If you have the date version, then it's an NH35. So really cool thing is no ghost date on this. So Helm do it properly. They don't just put a date movement in and then have a ghost date position on the crown, which I really am not a fan of. So well done, Helm, for putting the correct movement in. So comparing this cost-wise, I've got a little list of points over here. But as we're talking about cost, comparing this cost-wise to the the Erebus Origin, which is modelled partly on Helm, looks obviously more like the Vanuatu, but God, I need gloves on today, don't I? But yeah, so that was £415 delivered into the UK. What was it? It's free for something, and then it's £70 DHL admin fee for collecting the import tax, VAT, etc. Blah blah blah. So yeah, so it's a difference of £127 between buying one of these into the UK and buying one of these into the UK. Now that's a real world difference. I'm not going to talk about that too much. I've mentioned it on other videos to some degree, but the real world difference is that this is £127 cheaper than the Erebus Origin. I like both of them. I've showed you the Vanuatu. I'm going to try not to go off track here too much. The Vanuatu, which I have in titanium and steel. Obviously this one's steel, so let's compare those two. I'll come back to titanium and steel Helms in a minute. Because it's weird, my preferences on them. No, I really like the Erebus Origin. I kind of prefer it to the Vanuatu, if I'm honest. Which is a really odd thing to say, because I love Helm and I love the Vanuatu. They're very different watches, which I won't go into particularly here, but there are things I am not too keen on about the Vanuatu in comparison to the Khuraburi, but then but the Erebus does its own thing, so that I love it for what it is. Anyway, so that's the Erebus mentioned in terms of cost and stuff. Let's get back to the Helm. So the Khuraburi, as I've mentioned, I originally had the Vanuatu, and then ended up getting the Khuraburi titanium, which I really, really loved. So that made me really then want this one, because I love this colourway. And it is stunning. It is stunning. What do I like about it? It's ISO. It's an ISO rated 300 meter dive watch. I love the price, obviously. What did I put? Oh yeah, Vanuatu got an easy ride. I'll come back to that in a minute. Giving you the dimensions, mentioning H38/35. I think it's this one in particular is a fun watch. This is a summer watch, taking on holiday watch. I think if you're going to choose, but for me, choosing between the blue, well, all of the colours of the Khuraburi, I wanted the most colourful one. That's not really me as a person, but in this one, I love these colours. I love blue and orange. And it's got a very sort of, sea yachting, what would you call it, vibe, an ocean vibe, let's say. And so, yeah, it had to be the most colourful. I mean, they could make a more colourful one. I wouldn't necessarily go for that. I just think that this colourway works the best. But the blue and white one is fantastic too. But it's a super fun quality watch. Often, more expensive watches. I know Zenith have brought out a nice fun colour watch, but that's going to cost a fortune. You're going to spend that much on. I don't really like talking about money too much, but for me, it's a lot of money to have a colourful Zenith. I'd probably rather just spend that money and have a more classic Zenith. Now, you could also have a very colourful holiday watch that's quite cheap, like a sort of, I don't know, like a Swatch or something, let's say, for argument's sake. But I think this this mixes fun and quality fantastically. It's just so much watch for the money. What do I love? Love. So I love the grip on the crown and bezel. I just love that they're chunky, really. I love chunky dive watches. They're chunky and grippy. The clasp on this one, so on the titanium's a much harder metal to work with, so the bezel is, it's a bit grating. It's a bit like, pulling your fingernails down a chalkboard. And the clasp is actually, it's not too bad, but you kind of know you have to go for it. That's why it opens so well. It's got to go for it. It's just a lot easier. Both things are a lot easier and nicer feeling on the steel version. So I don't mind it being stiff. It is what it is. I know it's a harder metal to work with, and it's not an expensive. A lot of watch for the money, so I'm not going to really grumble about that. But the clasp on the steel one is much easier to operate. Now, what else do I like? Text and balance. I like, it's got some Seiko vibes going on here, so hopefully that's not glaring because it's difficult for me to see. I've got glare on the camera, viewfinder, so I can't see whether the glare is on the watch. But I don't think it is. Let me take my glasses off. It might be a bit easier for me to see. I like the balance of the dial. It's very chunky. Everything's very chunky, isn't it? I quite like that. It's got Seiko vibes on the Seiko Monster vibes on the indices, but I think it's balanced very well. Balanced in terms of colour. The logo, which is a printed logo, but because it's sort of got a bit of it's called that heavy print. It's almost got a bit of a 3D effect to the printing of the logo. So it's not applied, but it's getting there. But I really like it. I like the balance. I like the balance in 2 lines of text. The fonts just work for me. The skeletonized beginning of the hour and minute hands give it a kind of floating effect, but they're skeletonized as well. I don't normally like skeleton hands, but when they're in that position, the section that you can't really see, if that makes sense, then I think that gives it a lot of detail. Really cool. It's just really nicely balanced. The font on the numerals on the bezel, it's not overly fussy. There's just the right amount of stuff going on there, in my opinion. I think that's all the positives really that I've written down. But I really do. This is definitely, pound for pound, this is definitely one of my favourite watches. It's just. This one was, and I much prefer this one. Reason for that, let's talk about that before going to the negatives. So on the Khuraburi, I think that it's better. It's kind of better suited in steel, and that might be to do with the color. Well, it is to do with the colours of the dials, the colours that these two have. I like the fact that this has a very shiny, very bright look to the case and bracelet. Now that's got a white dial, but it has. I don't think the darker colour of titanium works as well on this piece. But if I bring the two Vanuatu's back, I do think that the titanium colour suits the Vanuatu better. I think it just goes, because it's black, I would imagine, because it's a black dial. It's a dark dial. I just think that, let's check the glare. I just think that the darker titanium colour goes better with the Vanuatu's black dial and just the general design of it. Speaking of, dial layout, the bezel on the Vanuatu is very fussy. It's something that I'm not particularly keen on. But you won't go too in depth into that. I think I gave the Vanuatu too high a rating when I originally reviewed it. And I have said that before. But yeah, I do love the watch. It has the logo. It's a similar logo, so it's printed, but it's got a kind of text. It's got like a depth to it. I do like the fact that that logo is there, although it's difficult to see. You see it. It's like it's very subtle. So it's got the same kind of balance. 2 lines of text. Actually 3 lines because it's got tie on this one, which it won't have on that one underneath there. Now, so as I say, I think the titanium suits the Vanuatu better. But what I do out of these two, I like the weight. I'm not massively. I mean, you don't really notice the weight so much when it's on your wrist, but picking them up, I definitely prefer the feel of steel. That sounds awful, doesn't it? But looks wise. But then going back to the Khuraburi, which I'll probably stick with now, I prefer the look of the steel and the feel of the steel. So that kind of knocks this one, which is a watch I truly love, kind of out. This shines for me now because not only is it I think nicer looking, but it's steel and nicer looking for that as well. And it's got the weight to it. It's got a lovely weight to it. So negatives. It's been mentioned before. I've seen it mentioned only recently, actually, by another YouTuber, that this orange section, or wherever that, I guess, whichever. I haven't noticed it before. Thanks for pointing that out to me. I'll never unsee it now. This section is overlaid on top of the colour underneath, so it kind of bleeds through. It's something I've noticed. Actually, I don't think it really is a negative for me. I would prefer it not to bleed through because then it would mean that was a more vivid orange, which I would like. So it's kind of a negative and kind of not. Now, as I've moaned about on all previous helms, the end link looks quite cheap, I think. Everything else looks chunky quality. The end link just looks a bit cheap with those little lines there. It's a solid end link, so as I've said before, they could just cut deeper grooves in there, so it wouldn't look so fake. As I mentioned before, it's got this what I now call it a Dutchy pot, which I think is an African cooking pot. It looks a bit like a cauldron. It looks a bit like it's got that pot, like wok. No, that's what I called it before, a wok. It's got like a wok side to it. Which I've never been that keen on, but no watch is perfect, and I've certainly forgiven it, and it is a design of this watch now. That's it really. They're just the three things that I would I change the sight? Well, yeah, I would. So if they made how would I improve this? See, I think although it's quite big, so it's 43mm. With a 22mm lug width, it doesn't wear super big on me. I would quite like a bigger version. Keep the lug width at 22, but just have a bigger case. Maybe a slightly different design without the sort of wok design. Have no creases there. Have it in one piece. Potentially then bring out make the lug slightly wider, a bit chunkier. Not change the lug width, but make the lug slightly wider. I think that would be a good look. Ceramic bezel. Imagine a ceramic bezel with very vivid orange in the orange segments. Maybe some new colourways. Possibly a crown guard. That's been mentioned before. I'm 6 of one and a half dozen the other on crown guards. I don't know. With the crown at 4 o'clock, you can also have the crown at 10 o'clock on this model actually. And as I've mentioned, you can have a date. With the crown at 4 o'clock, I don't know, crown guards, not sure. But potentially if it was a bigger model, crown guards. Now that brings me on to the point, I don't think Helm have had any new watches in years. I'm not even sure the price has gone up in years, which is kind of strange. Let me know in the comments below if I've got that wrong. Although I love Helms, I don't stalk them. I don't pay too much attention to what they're up to because I just order it and wait 18 months for it to arrive. I did say that if they made a bigger one, I wouldn't change the lug width, but the thing that changing the lug width might do is to give it a bit more taper. I'm happy with the taper. It's very minimal. but potentially a bigger watch, say, let's say 23mm lug width, would give a bit more taper, which might be nice. It would be a point of difference on the bigger watch. I think that is all. Was I going to mention anything else? I think that is all I really have to say about the Helm Khuraburi, other than, you know, confirming my deep, deep love for it. This is never going anywhere. This is a keeper. As I've said in a previous video, some others may have to go. Vanuatu may have to go, which I think I can't. Funds to get new watches in. You have to let ones go. I think that's reasonable. But I think that was all I had to say on the Helm Khuraburi. Let me know what you think. If you've got any questions, obviously, let me know in the comments below. But for now, one watchless wrist, live it.